Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be diving into some really practical advice on how to stop wasting your life.
Ooh, that's a heavy one.
It is, and it comes from entrepreneur Dan Martell.
I like him.
Yeah, he's got some really great stuff out there. This particular deep dive is based on a YouTube video he did called 7 Things I Quit Doing to Reach Success.
Nice.
And I think you'll find this really interesting because he kind of takes it beyond the typical like fluffy self-help stuff and gets really real with some changes you need to make to actually like achieve your goals.
I think a lot of people get caught up in like the Instagram version of self-help, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's like, do these 3 things and you'll be a millionaire tomorrow kind of thing.
Right, exactly.
He gets a little bit more real than that.
He does, and he's got some really great insights from his own experience as a successful entrepreneur.
And I think everyone at some point has felt like maybe they're wasting their life a little bit, or at least wasting time. So it'll be interesting to dive into these 7 things with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
The first thing that Dan Martell talks about quitting is spending time with energy vampires.
Okay.
Now, he tells the story about a friend he grew up with who would only ever reach out when he needed something.
Oh, I've had those friends.
Right.
Yeah.
So never to like celebrate a win or to offer support or anything like that. Just strictly
When they need something.
transactional.
Yeah. So have you ever had anyone like that in your life?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it goes beyond friends, too. It can be, family members or even colleagues
Right.
who just kind of drain you.
Yeah.
And, they take and never really give back.
And this is what Martell calls, those energy vampires.
Yeah.
And he actually suggests doing what he calls a friendventory, which I think is kind of a funny way of putting it.
I like it.
It's basically like taking an inventory of your friends.
Yeah. And seeing, who's actually adding value to your life and who's just kind of taking from it.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point because we often don't realize the impact that people around us have on our energy and on our success,
Right.
And so it's about being intentional about who you spend your time with and choosing people who energize you, who want to see you succeed, not just take from you.
Absolutely. And there's that quote, right? Like, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
So, you really got to choose your company wisely.
For sure. And that actually reminds me of the Pareto principle.
Uh-huh.
You heard of that?
Yeah, 80-20.
Yeah, the idea that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts.
Right.
So if you apply that here, it might be that just a few key relationships have a huge impact on your energy and success.
That makes sense.
So choose those few wisely.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on to the second thing that Dan Martell talks about quitting is seeking advice from the wrong people. So he has this funny example where he says, don't take fitness advice from a fat life coach.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
But I kind of wonder about this one a little bit.
How so?
Because I think sometimes there can be value in getting different perspectives, even from people who haven't achieved what we want.
Yeah.
Like maybe they can offer some unique insights or a different way of looking at things.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
What do you think about that?
I think there's definitely a balance to strike. It's good to be open to diverse viewpoints, but when it comes to specific goals that you want to achieve, Martell really emphasizes learning from those who have already walked that path.
Okay.
Because they have the experience, the insight, even the scars to prove it.
Right.
Think about it. If you want to run a marathon, you'd probably seek advice from someone who's actually run a marathon,
Yeah, that makes sense.
not from someone who's just read about it.
So it's about finding those people who have actually achieved what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, right. And who can provide guidance based on their own experience.
That's a good point. So think about maybe some of the advice that you've received in the past.
Yeah.
Was it from people who had actually accomplished what you were trying to do?
That's a good question to ask yourself.
Yeah. And if not, maybe it's time to seek out some new mentors.
Exactly.
All right, so the third thing that Dan Martell talks about quitting is blaming others.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, and he talks about how he used to blame everyone else for things that weren't going his way.
Like what kind of things?
Like traffic or bad deals or, just anything that he felt was outside of his control.
Well, hey, we've all been there.
Yeah, so easy to do, right?
Yeah, it's like a default reaction almost.
But he realized that by blaming others, he was essentially giving away his power. He was making himself a victim of circumstance.
Yeah, and it doesn't really solve anything, does it?
No, it doesn't.
It just keeps you stuck.
Right.
And Martell puts it this way. He says, imagine you're cooking a meal and it doesn't turn out as planned. Blaming the ingredients won't make a better meal.
Right.
You're the chef of your own life.
Right.
You have the power to change the recipe, to learn from your mistakes, and to create something amazing.
Wow, I love that analogy.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah, it really is, because it's so easy to blame the ingredients.
Yeah.
You know?
But ultimately, we're the ones who are responsible for the outcome.
Right. So it's about taking ownership of your choices and your actions.
Yeah, exactly.
And recognizing that you have the power to change things.
And, that actually leads us to Martel's next point.
Right.
Which is all about being selective with your yeses.
Okay, so this is something that I think a lot of people struggle with.
Yes, especially early in their careers.
Yeah.
You feel like you have to say yes to everything to get ahead.
Right. And Martel admits that early on in his career, he did exactly that.
He said yes to everything.
He said yes to every opportunity that came his way.
And what happened?
And he ended up burning himself out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He was spreading himself too thin, and he wasn't able to focus on the things that really mattered.
And I think that's something that a lot of us can relate to, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That feeling of being overwhelmed and overcommitted.
So what does Martel suggest we do about it?
Well, he says that saying no is just as important as saying yes. It's about prioritizing your time and energy and focusing on the things that truly align with your goals.
And he actually quotes Steve Jobs on this one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Steve Jobs famously said that innovation is saying no to 1,000 things.
I love that quote.
Yeah, and it's so true, because when you say yes to everything, you're essentially saying no to the things that really matter.
Right, you're diluting your focus and your energy.
Exactly. So it's about being selective and choosing those opportunities that are truly aligned with your vision.
Makes sense.
And this idea of being selective with our yeses actually makes me think about all the times we say yes to distractions.
Oh, especially on our devices.
Yes.
Right.
Like, we're constantly saying yes to every notification, every little ping that pulls us away from what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it's like we're addicted to distraction.
And that actually leads us perfectly into Martel's next point, which is about being a prisoner to your device.
I was just thinking that.
Right.
Yeah.
So he tells the story about a young man whose biggest obstacle was his phone.
Oh, wow.
He was constantly scrolling, procrastinating on important tasks, just wasting hours and hours of his day.
Yeah, and I think that's something that resonates with so many people today.
Oh, totally.
Right.
Like, it's such a common problem.
Like, how much time do you spend scrolling aimlessly each day?
Probably more than I'd like to admit.
I know, me too. It's scary.
But the good thing is that Martel doesn't just point out the problem. He actually gives us a call to action.
Okay, what does he say?
He says, turn off your notifications.
Right now.
Like, seriously, right now.
That's a good idea.
And then he says, to make your life interesting enough that scrolling isn't even tempting.
Okay, how do you do that?
Well, I think it's about, creating a vision for your life that's so compelling, so exciting.
Yeah.
That you'd rather be out there living it than glued to your screen.
I like that.
Yeah, that's inspiring.
It's about finding those things that truly light you up and making them a priority.
Absolutely, and I think that's a really powerful message, especially in today's world where it's so easy to get sucked into the digital vortex.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But you know what? Even when we do manage to put our phones down, we can fall into other traps.
Like what?
Like, how many of us read books just to say that we've read them?
Oh, yeah.
Without really absorbing the information or applying it to our lives.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And that's actually Martel's next point.
Okay, what does he say?
He says, don't just read books, study them.
Interesting.
And he admits that he used to speed read books just to get them off his to-do list.
Oh, wow.
But he wasn't truly engaging with the material or internalizing the knowledge.
So he was just going through the motions.
Yeah, without really getting anything out of it.
Right, and I think a lot of us do that with various things in our lives.
Yeah, we go through the motions without really being present.
Exactly, and what Martel realized is that the real value of a book lies in its application. It's not about just acquiring knowledge, it's about putting that knowledge into practice.
So he's saying we need to actually do something with what we learn.
Yes. He even talks about developing a JFDI muscle.
What's that?
It stands for just thing do it.
I like that.
Yeah, it's about building that habit of taking action even when it's uncomfortable.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we develop that JFDI muscle?
Well, I think it starts with identifying one small step that you can take today based on something that you've learned.
So think about a book you've read that really resonated with you, but you haven't put into practice yet.
Right.
What's one actionable step you can take today to apply that knowledge?
And just start there. you know.
Start small.
Yeah, and build from there.
That makes sense.
All right, so moving on to the final thing that Dan Martell talks about, quitting, and this is a big one.
Okay, hit me with it.
It's comparing yourself to others.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, and he's so honest about how that made him feel.
How did it make him feel?
He said it made him feel depressed, insecure.
Yeah.
Like he was always falling behind.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in the comparison game, especially with social media.
Right, you're constantly bombarded with everyone else's highlight reel.
Exactly, and it's easy to forget that everyone is on their own journey. You know, we all have our own timelines, our own challenges, our own victories.
And you know what Martell says about that?
What's that?
He says, to think of your life experience as a Spotify playlist.
Okay.
You're curating your own unique playlist, filled with the things you love, the experiences that light you up.
I like that.
So don't waste your time envying someone else's playlist.
Right.
Focus on creating your own masterpiece.
That's such a good point.
Yeah, because why would you compare your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 27?
Exactly. Yeah.
We're all at different stages in our lives.
Right. So maybe instead of getting caught up in the comparison game, we should
Focusing on personal growth and celebrating your unique journey.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
That's what we should be doing.
And you know, that actually reminds me of something else that Martell talks about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He says
What's that?
He says that most people spend more time planning their vacation than they do planning their lives.
Ooh, that's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it?
It is, right.
We put so much thought and energy into planning a 2-week trip.
Yeah.
But when it comes to our actual lives, we often just drift along without a clear sense of direction.
It's like we're on autopilot.
And that's why I think Martell's advice is so valuable.
Yeah.
It's about waking up and taking control, you know? It's about being intentional with our choices and creating a life that we truly love.
It's about designing your life instead of just letting it happen to you.
That's a great way to put it. So before we wrap up this first part, we want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question to ponder.
Ooh, I like those.
Yeah, and this is a big one.
Okay, I'm ready.
If you could eliminate just one source of wasted time from your life right now, what would it be?
That's a good one.
And what would you do with that reclaimed time?
I'm gonna have to think about that.
Yeah, me too. It's a really good question to sit with.
It is, because it forces you to really examine your priorities.
Right, and to think about how you're actually spending your time.
And what's truly important to you.
It's like shining a light on those little time leaks that are draining our energy and preventing us from pursuing those things that really light us up.
Yeah, those little things that we don't even realize are sucking away our time.
So think about it. What's that one thing for you?
Maybe it's that mindless scrolling on social media.
Yeah, or getting caught up in unproductive meetings.
Or maybe it's saying yes to commitments that don't actually align with your goals.
Whatever it is for you. Identifying that one time waster is the first step to reclaiming your time and energy.
And that's when the real magic can happen.
So we'll leave you with that question to ponder, and we'll pick up the conversation in our next part, where we'll dive into some more of Martell's insights.
Can't wait.
See you there.
All right, bye. So it's about recognizing that we're all on our own paths.
Yeah.
And there's no right or wrong way to do it. We all have our own timelines, our own challenges, our own victories.
And you know, actually that kind of brings me to another point that Martell makes.
What's that?
He talks about how he used to resist asking for help. Like he thought he had to figure everything out on his own.
It's like that lone wolf mentality, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that.
Especially in the beginning, you know, you feel like you have to prove yourself.
You want to do it all yourself.
Yeah.
But you know what he realized?
What's that?
He realized that seeking guidance from mentors and those who had already achieved what he wanted was actually a shortcut to success.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's like standing on the shoulders of giants. Right?
Okay, yeah.
It's about leveraging the wisdom and experience of others to accelerate your own growth.
So it's not about trying to do everything yourself.
Right.
It's about recognizing that you can learn from others.
Right.
And use their experience to your advantage.
Exactly. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
And it takes a lot of humility to admit that you don't know everything.
Yeah.
To be willing to ask for help.
But the rewards can be huge.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, it actually brings us back to the idea of being selective with your yeses.
Okay.
Because when you're clear about your goals, it becomes easier to identify which opportunities are truly aligned with your vision and which ones are just distractions.
So it's about making choices that move you closer to what you want to achieve.
Exactly.
Saying no to the wrong things frees up your time and energy to focus on the things that really matter.
It's all about being intentional with your choices, right?
Yes, every yes is also a no to something else.
Oh, I like that.
So you have to be mindful of how you're spending your time and energy.
But you know what? Sometimes saying no leads to failing. And that can be tough.
It can be really discouraging
Right.
to put yourself out there and then not succeed.
And Martel actually talks about embracing failure as a learning opportunity.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, he encourages you to view setbacks not as defeats, as stepping stones on your path to success.
I like that.
So it's about shifting your perspective.
Instead of seeing failure as a negative,
Right.
you see it as an opportunity to learn and grow.
And he has this great quote. He says, "Failure is just feedback. It's telling you what's not working so you can adjust your approach and try again."
So it's about not giving up.
Yeah.
It's about developing that resilience, that grit, that determination to keep going even when things get tough.
Because let's face it, no one achieves success without facing some challenges along the way.
It's all part of the journey.
Right, and growth isn't always linear, you know.
Yeah.
There will be ups and downs, twists and turns.
But as long as you're learning from your experiences and moving forward, you're on the right track.
So let's bring this back to our listeners.
Okay.
What are some practical steps that people can take
Yeah.
to implement these principles into their own lives?
Well, first, I think it's important to take some time to reflect on your goals and values.
Okay.
What do you truly want to achieve in life? What's important to you?
It's about getting clear on your why.
Exactly. Because once you have clarity on those things, you can start making choices that align with your vision.
Love it. What else?
Next, think about your environment. Are the people you surround yourself with supportive and encouraging?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Do they inspire you to grow and become a better version of yourself?
And if not?
If not, it might be time to make some adjustments.
Yeah, and you don't have to cut people out of your life completely.
No, not necessarily.
But you can be more intentional about how you spend your time.
Right.
And who you allow to influence your thoughts and actions.
Exactly. It's about setting boundaries and protecting your energy.
So audit those relationships.
Yes. Now, when it comes to seeking advice, remember to look to those who have achieved what you desire.
So find mentors.
Find mentors, read books, listen to podcasts, attend workshops.
Immerse yourself in the knowledge and experience of those who have already walked the path you want to take.
And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Most successful people are happy to share their insights and help others along the way.
They've been where you are.
They've been there.
And they understand the challenges you're facing.
Now, when it comes to taking action, remember Martel's JFDI muscle.
Just do it.
Don't let fear or procrastination hold you back.
You got it.
Break down your goals into smaller, more manageable steps and take that first step today.
I love that sometimes the hardest part is just getting started. But once you take that initial step, you build momentum and you start to see progress.
And that's incredibly motivating.
Okay, so what about when you inevitably start comparing yourself to others again?
It's bound to happen.
It is. How do you stop that from happening?
Remember that Spotify playlist analogy?
Oh, yeah.
Focus on curating your own unique playlist.
Yeah.
Filled with the things that bring you joy, the experiences that make you feel alive.
Love it.
Celebrate your own unique journey and don't let anyone else's highlight reel dim your shine.
It's about recognizing that we're all on our own paths.
And there's no right or wrong way to do it.
We all have our own timelines, our own challenges, our own victories.
Exactly. And when you embrace your own journey, you free yourself from the pressure of comparison and allow yourself to fully experience the joy and fulfillment that comes from living a life that's true to yourself.
I love that it's about celebrating our individuality.
And recognizing that our differences are what make us special.
Exactly. And when we can embrace our own uniqueness and stop comparing ourselves to others,
What happens?
we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities. We become more confident, more resilient, and more empowered to create the life we truly desire.
So let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned today.
Right.
We've explored Dan Martel's 7 habits to quit if we want to stop wasting our lives.
And we've discussed practical steps you can take to implement these principles into your own life.
But it all comes down to taking action, doesn't it?
It does. It's about taking control of your time, your energy, and your mindset.
It's about setting clear goals, surrounding yourself with supportive people, seeking guidance from those who have achieved what you desire. embracing failure as a learning opportunity,
Yeah.
and celebrating your own unique journey.
It's time to step into your power and create the life you've always dreamed of.
And you know, that reminds me of something Martel said that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah? Well, what's that?
He said, most people spend more time planning their vacation than they do planning their lives.
Wow. Yeah, that's it.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Like, we put so much thought and energy into planning a 2-week trip,
Right.
but when it comes to our actual lives, we often just drift along without a clear sense of direction.
It's like we're on autopilot.
And that's why Martel's advice is so valuable.
Yeah.
It's about waking up and taking control.
Yeah.
It's about being intentional with our choices and creating a life that we truly love.
So before we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
we want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question to ponder.
Okay, I'm ready.
If you could eliminate just one source of wasted time from your life right now, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It is, and what would you do with that reclaimed time?
Wow, that's a really good question to think about.
It is, right?
It's challenging us to be really honest with ourselves about where our time is actually going
Yeah,
and what's most important to us.
exactly.
So what would it be for you?
I'm still thinking about that one.
Yeah, it's tough.
It is, but maybe it's that mindless scrolling on social media.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Or, getting caught up in unproductive meetings.
Or maybe it's those commitments we make that we probably should have said no to.
Right, things that don't really align with our goals.
Exactly.
So whatever it is for you,
Yeah.
I think identifying that one time waster is the first step.
To reclaiming your time and energy.
Exactly. And then, once you've identified it, it's like, well, what do you do with that extra time?
Oh, yeah, that's the fun part.
Right.
Like, what would you actually do at that time?
Would you finally start that passion project you've been putting off?
Or spend more quality time with your family and friends.
Right. Maybe you'd learn a new skill or travel or just, relax and recharge.
The possibilities are endless.
They really are.
It's exciting to think about.
It is. And I think that's the whole point of this deep dive.
To empower people.
Yeah, to empower people to take control of their time and design a life that they truly love.
And remember, it's not about being perfect or eliminating every single distraction. It's about making conscious choices each day and focusing on progress, not perfection.
I love that.
Yeah.
So as you go about your day today,
Yeah.
we encourage you to keep that question in mind. What's one source of wasted time I can eliminate to create more space for those things that truly matter?
And remember, every small step you take towards reclaiming your time is a victory worth celebrating.
That's a great point. So that's it for this deep dive into Dan Martell's wisdom on how to stop wasting your life.
I hope you enjoyed it.
We hope you found it insightful and inspiring and that you'll take some of these ideas and put them into practice in your own life.
Remember, the power to create a more fulfilling and meaningful life is within you.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep living intentionally.
See you then.